I'm Peter. Where are you from, originally?
Hello?
Hello, Ghostbusters. Yes, of course they're serious.
Hello? That's a different look for you, isn't it?
Are you the keymaster?
Not that I know of.
What else could we possibly say about Ghostbusters?
Well, I think we said most of it to one another, but I guess some of the point of this is like sharing it with other folks that may have seen the movie and they just think it's a comedy or it's like overrated, it's a little 80s thing, but there's so much more depth to a movie like this. It's funny, it's like dramatic, all the effects, the great performances. I don't know, let's just get it out there. I just thought we would both be pretty, I think, well equipped to talk about this movie in particular.
We came, we saw, we kicked its ass. And now,
I just want to talk about an incredible movie. I think it'd be fun.
Well, sure.
Relax, we are on the threshold of establishing the indispensable defense science of the next decade. Professional paranormal investigations and eliminations. The franchise rights alone will make us rich beyond our wildest dreams.
This was actually the very first movie I ever saw in a movie theater.
Nice.
2 years old. I don't obviously remember anything about it. My parents took me. I think they said I got scared of Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Of all the shit in the movie, that's what scared me.
Yeah, not the crazy dogs. That's probably the scariest part. Yeah.
I was cool with that, I guess, but the Marshmallow Man got me.
I'm terrified beyond the capacity for rational thought.
And then this was always just a movie you just watched as a kid all the time.
Same.
And then, so I think what turned it for me from being just a great movie I like to being, wow, this is one of the best movies ever. I was probably like 20, 21, and was watching it with Megan. And, you know, early on in the going, you're trying to show off, like, oh, look what I know. So I'm like pointing out things in the movie.
Yeah.
And what's made me realize, oh, wait, this isn't just a funny movie. I've seen this movie 100 times, but I'm catching stuff now that I'm with somebody else that either went over my head or I was focusing on like more of a comedy.
Yep.
Or the more grandiose elements of the movie that just started going, whoa.
Sorry, I mean, talk over. Do you remember an example of one of those things, like from that specific viewing with Megan?
I think one of the things that stood out to me, it was like a really subtle, I think it was a really subtle moment with Venkman. I think it was actually in the first scene with him when he was with the graduate students.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's funny when you're watching it, you know, and he smacks Ray in the head right in the middle of something, Ray.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think it was just his interaction with those two students that probably was like, wait a minute, there's something going on here that I didn't catch when I was 15.
All right. Tell me what you think it is.
Is it a star?
It is a star. Very good. That's great.
Do you think I have it, Dr. Venkman?
You're no fluke, Jennifer.
He was like being so sarcastic with them, but also like serious with the guy, with the white dude with the fro. And he was
Forgot about the hair.
Only 4 of these to go or something. And he was looking at the girl, and it was just so like, I don't think you can write that stuff. It's just Bill Murray. You know what I mean?
Yeah, actually, good point. A lot of it probably was him, but I couldn't think of a more perfect like character introduction for Venkman, because that showed exactly the kind of like scumbag, womanizer, wannabe womanizer, you know, kind of guy, but still kind of a nerd, still kind of inept, you know. It's a perfect introduction to his character. If you look at, again, not to get all technical and stuff. I think we shouldn't do that. But I like this movie has so much to it that you can look from a technical like filmmaking aspect.
Oh, sure.
Appreciate, you know, they did such a good job with introducing characters and like it's paced well and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, as far as characters go, like that was a perfect, you know.
Well, yeah, because that was also, you know, that was after the intro with the ghost and the lady and the librarian. And you go right from that, you know, tense, scary scene to just Venkman creeping on this girl and scamming this guy or whatever. I don't even know why he was scamming him. Like he was right. He could have said, "Oh, he didn't care. He just wanted the girl."
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like he was trying to get the guy to leave so he could, you know, flirt with the girl. He was just screwing with the guy. He was just literally making his life hard in front of his.
Sorry, this is not.
Like he's trying to make him look bad in front of the girl because he's younger.
Yeah.
Like, you know, that kind of thing.
I don't think he needed to try to make that guy look bad anyway.
Right.
There was something that I noticed because on the door it says like "Die Venkman."
Oh,
what was that? I remember thinking like, who did that and why did they do that? Was it just because was that a female student that he was messing with? Was that a guy? I mean, I was always wondering about that. What do you think?
I think it was another one of those guys that he probably already did this test on like last week. That got mad and wrote on the door, and now he's doing it again to some other dude. That'd be my guess.
All right, because I was just thinking about that because that you actually see that before you see him is the door, and it says "Die Venkman."
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like, that's pretty. Who says that about their professor?
But again, that's another awesome little detail they put in because like you see this Die Venkman, you're like, man, what did this guy do? And then you see what he does. You see him messing with this kid.
Okay.
I know what me.
I also like you talk about the character introduction of Ray because he comes in just bursting at the seams. We got one. We got to go down there. We got Evan. He's just ready to go. And I think I read something about, you know, his childlike enthusiasm was the heart, you know, obviously this is the heart of the Ghostbusters, but it's also the heart of the movie in a way because he's so into this and he's so excited about it. If it had just been, you know, all right, we got to go get the ghosts or whatever, you would have, yeah, whatever. But he was so excited about it, so we were excited about it.
Yeah. Because I mean, he's the whole one that pushed. Well, actually, no. Venkman is the one that kind of pushed him into going to business and like monetizing it because that's Venkman. But I think he saw, you know, how excited Ray was. You're talking about it like as a character. Yes. Like, you know what? I mean, like Ray's got something here. Let's make some money on it. And then he used Ray's parents' house as collateral to get the loan and start to buy the building or whatever. So
yes, he used him in many ways. But no, he said, all right, wait a minute. Ray is super pumped about this. And then Egon comes in with we can actually catch it and hold it. So he's using their brains and he's using Ray's passion as well.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
To build this. And it's just funny. You can actually see the moment because Egon walks away and there's a shot that holds on Venkman. He's like, wait a minute. And it clicks in his head like, wait, you're serious we can do this? And then, you know, I'm always serious. Which again, a super simple, easy line, just delivered deadpan and perfect and makes you laugh.
Yeah, the next one I'm thinking of is where, and again, it's Venkman messing with Egon, but it's like, you remember that time you tried to drill a hole in your head? And then Egon's like, yeah, it worked if you hadn't stopped me. Just perfectly shows how they both like view the world and have in conversations and stuff, which is awesome.
Yeah.
The movie's just full of stuff like that.
And by the way, Venkman stopped him. He was like, hey, wait a minute, you probably shouldn't do that.
But that too, like shows like, well, he's not a terrible guy. And then at the end, you know, he ends up kind of stepping up and being the man and stuff. And remember, he was like genuinely cared about Dana and he was worried about her welfare and stuff. You know, he's a caring guy. He's just also kind of a scumbag.
Yeah, he's not a sadist, but he didn't want to see Egon drill a hole in his head. He's like, wait a minute, this is a bad idea. All right, there was a moment that now that my now that Megan works at a university and I have some kind of inner knowledge of how universities work. All right, so the dean, after they go to try and get the ghost at the library, I know I'm skipping a lot of funny stuff, but they come back to the office, they're all excited, and the dean is there with the crew.
Yes.
And and he's just like ready to kick him out. And he says, the Board of Regents has terminated your grant.
This university will no longer continue any funding of any kind for your group's activities.
But the kids love it.
Bulk of the time, at a big university, researcher, you get your grants from outside sources. Board of Regents would not be issuing grants to faculty members to do research.
Does it depend on the school though? Because this is like Columbia, right? I mean,
that's called a Research One university, and they typically, especially in the hard sciences like that, your ability to get grant money is kind of your window into getting and keeping your job. So he should have said something like, your grant's been terminated by the something foundation, and we're going to kick you off campus now because of that. That's a totally minor, stupid thing, but because I know how universities work now, I'm like, wait a minute, did they really do that? But it was all just a pretext just to kick them off campus anyway. It doesn't matter, but I noticed that. It was just another like, all right, here's another little tiny villain to kick him off campus to get this whole thing started. So yeah. Another thing that always drove me crazy was when, again, I'm skipping ahead, Walter Peck comes in the first time, which another great character. I really love, what's that actor's name? William Atherton?
That's it. Atherton, A-T-H-E-R.
Yeah, William Atherton.
Yeah.
Another great 80s character villain guy who's been in a bunch of movies. He always plays a bad guy almost. But and he says, what exactly are you doctor of? And which is such a condescending, shitty thing to say to somebody, by the way. Yeah. Exactly, you doctor of. He says he has PhDs in parapsychology and psychology. Do you know how ridiculous it is for a human being to get 2 PhDs?
Yeah.
That's so.
Go ahead.
Because to get 1 PhD is like 7 years. So unless he had some kind of cross thing where he was doing both at the same time, and then, but again, if you know how, universities work and how you have to get a PhD, it's incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
You have to have advisors. You have to have multiple faculty members. You have to do all this stuff. I'm like, did Bill Murray really get 2 PhDs?
Yeah, it's the hardest out of the 3 initial guys. He's the hardest one to believe has that accomplishment, just because of the kind of dude that he is, and he spends his time shocking frat boys to try to impress women or whatever. But maybe again,
he should have said something like, I have a PhD in psychology and I'm an expert in parapsychology or something. But 2 PhDs, that I'm not buying. I could buy him getting a PhD when he was younger, and now he's older and doesn't give a shit anymore. So the only thing I could say is that you could say like Venkman. Let's say he was smart, studious, got his PhD, blah, and then just kind of got burnt out in academia and didn't care anymore. And that's when we meet him. Doesn't care anymore. Just messing around. I got a grant. I'm just trying to pick up chicks. Academia is boring. It's not what I thought it was going to be. And then he gets invigorated by this new endeavor of, these 2 guys I work with, who I make fun of because they're nerds, but hey, they got something going here. Maybe we can, So
that's an awesome observation. I never actually thought about motivations behind Venkman, because Ray and Egon are both very clear what their motivations are and like what they're trying to get out of this. But that's a great point about Venkman, because he's just kind of there, and he's not really into the whole mechanics of actually catching ghosts. He's not. He's just riding their coattails, I guess, to a certain extent. So
he doesn't know what the
that's interesting to think, like, how did he get to that state? Because if he's got 2 PhDs, he's obviously been an academic and took it seriously enough to achieve that. But now how he acts like this. So
yes.
That's a great point. And maybe he's just like, I'm over it. I'm like wanting to have fun.
So.
And I think the quote was, he's talking about how you've only worked in the university. I've worked in the public sector. They expect results. I think that was the quote from Ray. And that's just reinforcing what you just said. Yeah.
That's really a good line that they put in there, which was the little bit of fear. Ray's like, hang on, this is I don't know about this. Let's find another place to work. It's not this ridiculous ghost catching business. I don't even know. They don't even say it until Venkman, they leave the bank and Venkman says, professional, paranormal, whatever, research and
investigators and eliminators. Yeah.
Eliminators, yeah. That's the first time they actually say it, was when they leave the bank. So.
Yep. He does that kind of movie thing where he's drawing it in the air till Ray can see the dream type thing. Yeah, I remember that.
That's true, yeah. Did you know, I'm assuming you know as much about the movie as I do. I was curious about the idea that Eddie Murphy they wrote the original part for Winston was written for Eddie Murphy. And it really works. I mean, that's another huge personality to add into the movie.
Yeah.
I don't think it would have worked as well. And I actually really like the way they introduced Winston and just, they're slammed, they need help. He just shows up. Yeah, I'll do whatever you guys want. Like, all right, you're hired.
Do you believe in UFOs, astral projections, mental telepathy, ESP, clairvoyance, spirit photography, telekinetic movement, full trance mediums, the Loch Ness Monster, and the theory of Atlantis?
If there's a steady paycheck in it, I'll believe anything you say.
But I wonder what the role was going to be if it was Eddie Murphy. What was that role going to be? What was Winston going to be? Was he going to be an equal?
Right. Great point. Because Eddie Murphy would not have worked in as low key of a role, as Ernie Hudson ended up playing. Like, that wouldn't work for Eddie Murphy. People would just think that's a waste of Eddie Murphy. Like, because they're so used to. I don't know if Beverly Hills Cop came out first.
Same year.
Right.
Same summer.
Within '84, were audiences already exposed to Eddie Murphy through Beverly Hills Cop? Because if so, they gave him the Winston role in Ghostbusters. It would just, it wouldn't be a good thing to follow Beverly Hills Cop with that kind of role.
Yeah. You have to look up what was. I think Ghostbusters came out first. Maybe like April, May, and then Beverly Hills Cop was more in the summer. And I actually think Beverly Hills Cop made more money.
Yeah, I think so. Wasn't that like the highest grossing movie in '84? I may be making that up.
I believe it was.
Yeah, it was huge.
Yeah, but I was wondering, like, what was that role gonna be with him as Winston? Was it gonna be, as another blue collar guy coming in to help? Was he gonna be on equal footing with the Ghostbusters? Because, like you said, Winston, as written and played by Ernie Hudson, was low key.
Yeah.
And he was a great vehicle to deliver exposition to, like to explain all this stuff to, because he's basically an audience member. How do you catch these guys? And Ray just boom explains everything to him, and then he's the voice of like, wait, we're gonna go in and say what about the Babylonian god? So that's a great character to do that, even though it's not, memorable in some ways, but it's a great, a gear in the movie that keep things going and help things move along better.
And him being an audience member is a great point, because it can't be too crazy to where Winston doesn't understand it, because then we're not going to be able to keep up either. So he's kind of, if you and I were in the situation, that's kind of what Winston represents. And it's awesome because by the end of it, he plays a huge role. He's obviously helped him fight Gozer and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's, his character is awesome.
and he does plant the idea in Ray's head of, wait a minute, there's a reason why we're so busy now. It's because something big's coming, basically. And he just kind of this angle, and then Egon comes at it from the scientific angle, and then it all snowballs from there.
And I remember feeling, it's kind of like I was almost impressed with Ray because Ray always struck me as just like a very scientific dude, not somebody who goes to church and all that kind of stuff. Because they were in the car coming back in that evening scene, and what you're talking about happens. Winston's like, have you ever considered that, this is, I don't know what he says, but the biblical end of days or something. It's like the end of days actually are here.
Yeah.
Have you consider that? And Ray's like, I remember Revelation 7, and then he proceeds to cite whatever Bible verse it is.
Ray, do you remember something in the Bible about the last days when the dead would rise from the grave?
I remember Revelation 7:12. And I looked as he opened the sixth seal, and behold, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became as black as sackcloth, and the moon became as blood.
And the seas boiled, and the skies fell.
It's like, man, Ray's like, he grew up
just pulled it out
like a church guy, and then he got interested in all this stuff. It just gave him a little bit more depth to his character.
Yeah, that was actually really cool because he kind of stops and looks up and he's remembering it, and you can kind of see him like, oh, I remember this as a kid when I used to go to church. Yeah, that was really cool. And then they look at each other like, enough of this. This is too heavy.
It wasn't was that the beginning of the I Believe It's Magic?
No, that was when the ghosts all come out.
Okay, so speaking of, I have a couple little visuals for this call.
Okay.
I thought I lost this thing in the move, so I picked this up at an estate sale. This is the 1984 Arista, I guess, original Ghostbusters soundtrack right here.
Whoa, I didn't know you had that.
There's a funny story, which, again, I asked you at the beginning of the call, how clean do you want this to be? But the way that I obtained this,
go ahead.
Cut this out or whatever, but it was at an estate sale. And I bought some other records at the estate sale, but this one I found it because they had like an old-fashioned, those old-fashioned like turntable stereo hybrid cabinets.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It's like a waist-high cabinet with the radio and the turntable all built into it, and the speakers and all that stuff.
So my grandparents had one of those.
Okay, so you know what I'm talking about.
Me and my brother would play with it, and we tore it to shit. And then when Megan's grandparents passed, they have one, and I actually put my turntable on top of that and my record. So it's like I use it as like a display for my current turntable.
So I know about that. I remember that now because I was up there and you were talking about that. Okay, good. So that's exactly the thing that I'm talking about. So this, it was at an estate sale, and just, everything in the house had a tag on it. They're trying to get rid of it. So I remember opening the lid of that old school LP cabinet, record player cabinet, and this record was on the platter, which, first of all, it's like, who's been listening to this Ghostbusters soundtrack, and was the last time they listened to it actually 1984, and no one used this cabinet since 1984? It's very likely, right? Because it was an old person that lived there. So I immediately thought, like, why is it this record and not like Merle Haggard or something on the platter? But anyway,
or Baccarat,
they didn't know. They clearly didn't know the record was in this thing, but they were selling the cabinet. I guess they didn't open it. So I'm like, man, I want this record, but it's not for sale. If I say something, they might be like, oh, we're gonna put a price on it or something. We didn't know it was there. So I actually just took it. I just took it off the thing and walked out with it. But to my defense, I did buy another record, and I bought some other stuff like some wine glasses or something. So they got my money, but I got their Ghostbusters LP.
Where did you put it? Did you like slip it in your coat or something?
Well, I think I put it in the sleeve. I just stuck it in with the other record in the sleeve.
Oh, okay. So you don't have that sleeve, just have the record.
Exactly, and I just put it in this cheap white sleeve that I got. Yeah. But I should have just said, hey, can I have this, or I'll give you $5 for it or something.
So what's on there? What records? I mean, obviously the Ghostbusters theme song is on there. What else is on there?
Yeah, the Ernie Ray. Is it Ernie Reyes Jr.? Yeah.
No, Ray Parker. Ray Parker
Jr. Ernie Reyes Jr. is the kid, the martial arts guy that was in the Ninja Turtles movie. That's Ernie Reyes Jr.
I don't know that at all.
Yep, that's who he is. Okay.
That's over my head.
All right. No, it's got the Ray Parker Jr. It's got, you know, the Saving the Day song on it that plays towards the end when they're going into the building, the street crumbles and they all fall.
Yeah.
I think that's when they play that. It's got that. I believe it's Magic, which is like my favorite track from the soundtrack. But it actually starts off as a totally different sounding, like soft rock song. It doesn't sound like an 80s synth forward, you know, how much keyboard is in that track. It doesn't sound like that to start with. It's a bunch of guitar and like singing. And then all of a sudden the song goes into the section, the phrase that's in the movie. It just completely 180s. And then you hear
I had no idea.
Yeah, I didn't either. I'm glad I got this.
I'm gonna have to look it up.
So that song's called Magic. It's got Dana's theme, which we'll talk about Elmer Bernstein in a minute. I want to bring that up too.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's got that cleaning up the town, that sort of that old, how do you describe that? That fast piano rock song that plays when they first go into business and they're kind of running around New York and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
That's on there. That's one of the tracks.
I keep wanting to say the boys are back in town, but it's not that.
No.
That's for 48 hours.
Oh.
All right, you mentioned Elmer Bernstein.
Yeah, that was one of my talking points. I wrote down talking points, but
it's just such a phenomenal piece of music. The way he sprinkles the piano, it's mostly piano that really gets me.
Yeah,
the little, because he wrote all these little riffs and these little themes. Yeah, but the way he wrote it, and it just really sells the movie for me in the quiet moments and the less, you know, big epic moments is those piano parts that really they just make you feel good. I don't know how to describe it. It's like you're watching this movie and the piano just makes you feel so good watching the movie.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is. I mean, I'm not a musicologist or whatever, but I don't know what chords he's doing, but it just feels good. Yeah,
you and I both like piano a great deal, and he uses that to amazing effect in this movie. And a lot of the music takes place. A lot of those little sort of riffs that Elmer wrote that you're talking about, like, take place during the transitions between scenes. So, like, if Dana is walking across the street carrying the grocery bag going up to her apartment, you hear this great Elmer Bernstein like motif that's going on, and then if they're panning up one of the Art Deco buildings, you know, they do a lot of pans up and down buildings, and you'll hear the Elmer Bernstein score during that kind of stuff. So man, it's so underrated. I only know he did movie for this and Stripes. I'm sure he did some other like Harold Ramis films as well, but those are the two that I remember is from Elmer Bernstein.
Yeah, I mean, I know the name. You know, I know he's done more. I should have looked up some stuff beforehand, but you talk about those sweeping, you know, pan up shots. Those where you had more of the swelling horns.
Yeah.
Those kind of more foreboding music. But like you said, when the transition, like when Dana's walking or doing this, or that was some of the best music. It was just the simple piano stuff.
Yeah, and the horns. Horns in his orchestra too, because I remember the part where Bankman meets Dana after her rehearsal in the park with the fountain, and where Bankman's like,
"That's a great score."
And the part where he sees the skater spinning around, and then Bill Murray's brilliant improvisation decides to spin around as well, and he does a little spin.
Yeah.
The music, the fanfare that's playing and stuff during a little happy moment in the movie.
That's a good word, fanfare. It's like Bankman's just like, yeah, I got her, you know, or, you know, he's just feeling good. Is that the same music that ends the movie when Ernie Hudson screams, "I love this town"? Is that the same?
Actually, yeah, well spotted. Cue? I think it's like the same, almost the same.
And then it goes, and right after he yells that, it goes into the Ghostbusters theme song. But when they rescue Dana and they're leaving, I think that's the same cue as when he, like he said, meets her after the rehearsal and he gets agrees.
I think it is. It's that like victorious sounding sort of fanfare. But back to your point about like those brilliant composers like that can evoke whatever emotion they want, and they like know how to write a melody and a harmony that evokes that emotion they're trying to do. And that he's so good at doing that, because like you said, in the moments where they win or they're happy, that he wrote a phrase of music, and sure enough, like that's how you and I are describing it right now. It's exactly what you wanted to do.
But it's not just, I think somebody described, who was John Carpenter. I'm not a huge John Carpenter fan, but somebody was talking about him and how he described music in movies as wallpaper, where it's just kind of there in the background. And it's not that, and it's not kind of paint by numbers where, all right, these are the chords that I need to play to get this emotion, because it's so a lot of it's so playful, and he clearly tell the composer loves what he's playing and loves what he wrote. This isn't just, like a lot of modern movies. I don't remember the last movie that had a really great score that really either people listen to or people talk about. Most of them are just, again, it's just wallpaper, just there. It's just like, all right, this is an exciting part, let's put some exciting music in. This is an emotional part, let's put some emotional part. This was like Elmer Bernstein just kind of at a piano. The best writers write at a piano, and he was just like, let's play some fun stuff.
Yeah, when you hear a John Williams score, they're all over the place, but you immediately know it's a John Williams, whether you're watching Jurassic Park, Jaws, Harry Potter, Star Wars, Home Alone. You immediately know, like, okay, I know this music. You may not know who John Williams, like what his name is, but you know it was the same guy. Same thing with Elmer Bernstein. Like, if you watch Stripes, like, this sounds like the music from Ghostbusters, except they wrote it to sound like Army, like military marches, music and stuff. But it's got his flavor all over it.
I think the word is jaunty. That he's like bouncing on the piano almost. And that, to me, that when I think of Ghostbusters music, I think of that jaunty kind of bouncing piano. And then I think of the other bigger themes that he put in, the horn swells, the fanfare stuff, like we said, which to me, that's great about good composers, is being able to nail the simple stuff. You know what I mean? Get the simple stuff right. And then after that,
make it memorable, even though simple stuff, so you'll remember how amazing it is.
Yeah, I think, what's the guy who wrote The Lord of the Rings, Howard Shore?
Yeah.
Which that's a great score, by the way.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I think Peter Jackson, because I watched a lot of that behind the scenes stuff, Peter Jackson was like, I need something I can hum. You know what I mean? Basically he was saying, I need a melody and I need something that's memorable here, I remember there's a behind the scenes with Spielberg talking about Indiana Jones, and he was whistling the theme that Williams wrote. He was like, oh, and he wrote it. So he was talking about all these things you can whistle and hum along to. Basically, it's hard to put a strong melody in a piece of music that is an accompaniment. This is not the main thing. This is secondary to the visuals and the movie. But to be able to write a strong, memorable melody, that's something that it's hard to do. And, obviously we got it in Ghostbusters.
Yeah. And just talking about the difference in Elmer Bernstein and another composer that is just there to do a job and doesn't really put any of his or her art or style into it. They just clock in, they work with the producer, play the music here when the murder victim is revealed or whatever in some cop show, something like that.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Okay, I'm ready.
The victim's penis was found behind the AC unit.
Just go with the usual stuff, maybe. Something dark and ominous, like losing your penis is a bad thing.
Oh, you want dark and ominous?
A couple of things I was wanting to talk about that I was thinking about, and some of the stuff doesn't matter because ultimately this is a comedy. The most important thing in a comedy is laughing, consistently staying funny.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So some of the plot stuff, not that big a deal, but I was still thinking about it. So I was thinking about Winston is talking to Ray about why we're so busy and the possible end times and what's going on nowadays. Is something big going to happen? And then they go back and Egon's talking about the Twinkie and the the amount of psychic kinetic, whatever he says, energy in the region. And I was thinking, and then, sorry, let me skip forward ahead. And then Walter Peck makes him shut down the grid, and all the ghosts come out, and that's the catalyst for the return of Gozer, essentially.
Yeah, it's the climax of the film. Yeah.
So I was wondering, like, what was Gozer's plan? You know, like, was Gozer sending more spirits in to be released to create some cataclysmic event for him to return? Or did the ghosts releasing, was that just an accident that led to his return? Because there was a rapid increase in paranormal activity, right?
Yeah.
And then all the ghosts got captured, and then they were essentially released on accident, which then led to Zool and Vince Clortho, and then that led to Gozer coming back. So was that Gozer's plan? Like, what was Gozer's plan? Or is this all just happenstance? Again, none of this matters. But I was just thinking, what was this demon's plan or whatever it was?
No, I think it matters. That's a great question. Another one that I haven't thought about, just because I've enjoyed the movie so much. You rarely even question stuff in a movie that's so enjoyable like this. But that is an awesome question. Like, the only thing I was thinking about when you said that, it's like, would Gozer have still, if Gozer had a plan to come and take, I guess the plan is just to take over this dimension, because Gozer's from a parallel dimension, according to Ray.
Yes.
Another dimension. I guess the goal is just conquest. But
yes.
If her plan was to do that, and she required the presence of all these ghosts already in Earth to maybe give her the strength to invade, to actually come there, maybe like the more ghosts are in there, the wider the door is, and easier it is for ghosts to come in. I'm assuming that's the case. But how did she know? Did she bank on the fact that they would release all these ghosts at one time? Like, did Gozer as a deity foresee Walter Peck shutting down them, knowing they had collected all of her ghosts in one place, and she's like, okay, I foresee the future. This guy's going to let them all out at once, which will allow me to come in. So, like, was that the plan? That's the only thing I can think.
Yeah, that's again, this is nonsense that I'm talking about. But it's
interesting to me because I'm talking a lot about it.
Because we've seen the movie so many times, and that's what happens when you see a movie so many times. Like, wait a minute, what was this demon's plan? Unless it was just there happened to be a lot of paranormal activity going on.
Right.
Happened to capture the ghosts because of their newfound skills. And then maybe during that time, Gozer's like, oh, maybe all this paranormal activity is going on. Maybe I'll send my two minions, and at some point, something cataclysmic is going to happen, which will lead to my return. And it just happened. And it just happened to be all the ghosts being released at once.
That's a way better synopsis than the one I just said. That's probably what they had in mind when they wrote it. It's not, because it's almost like Gozer's this big thing and can see multiple places and dimensions, and the fact that there was paranormal activity happening to go on and these people were addressing it drew Gozer's attention to this world. And to your point, he's like, oh, I'll keep an eye on this world. Like, if something happens.
But maybe Gozer's attention was brought earlier because was it Ivo Shandor had been summoning him decades earlier. So maybe Gozer's like, what's going on over there on Earth?
That's all right. That's a deep track right there, Ivo Shandor.
And then a couple decades later, which would be like a blink of an eye for a parallel dimensions demon. Oh, there's more paranormal activity here. Maybe I can come in now and do my thing and do backflips on top of the building.
Only when shot at by very dangerous weapons.
Yeah. I do have one more thing. Going back to Gozer's plan and talking about Dana being possessed. So the crux of Gozer's plan was for Zool and Vince Clortho to hook up. Do they have to? Do they have to bang for Gozer to come back?
You're wondering if that happened off screen.
Yeah, because she kisses Louis Tully when he comes in as Vince Clortho, and she was trying to seduce Peter when he said he was the Keymaster.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So was that really, like, did they write this? Did Dan Aykroyd say, all right, and the two demon minions have sex, and that brings back Gozer?
He probably did, and he probably wrote the next scene where I guess Venkman goes up. They go up the stairs. Venkman comes up there, and they're still in the apartment that exploded, and she's in the dress, whatever. And that I probably wrote it to where, like, when Venkman comes up, they were like naked. You know, they were in some kind of a nude embrace, whatever. Where they had just come together. And then maybe Ivan Reitman or somebody said, we got to keep the PG rating or whatever. We can't do that. You can't do that in this movie. Yeah. I wouldn't put it past Dan Aykroyd to have written it that way. It's
I think he wrote
a lot more extreme on a lot of stuff, than what we saw.
I think he wrote something not creepy, but just weird and sexual. And Harold Ramis, no, let's just have them kiss, and then it'll be not even implied, but if you look under the surface, they bang.
Right.
It's a great
Right, but when they're caught, when they're discovered up there, they got the same clothes on they did before.
Yes, they're just laying there. Yeah.
Or they unclothed at some point. So who knows and who cares? But it's fun. Obviously, it's hilarious to think about that. Because first of all, it's Louis Tully, and second of all, it's Rick Moranis.
Hi, yes, Louis, it's me.
I thought it was a drugstore.
Oh, are you sick?
Oh, no, I'm fine. I feel great. Just ordered some more vitamins and stuff. I was just exercising. I taped 20-minute workout on my machine and played it back at high speed, so it only took 10 minutes. I got a great workout.
Good.
You want to come in for a mineral water?
Oh, I'd really like to, Louis, but I have to go to rehearsal now. Excuse me.
No sweat. I'll take a rain check on that. I always have plenty of low-sodium mineral water and other nutritious foods in the house, but you already know that.
Yeah, I know that.
So I wonder if Granny Weaver's like, man, I'm not doing a no clothing scene with Rick Moranis. I'm just not doing it.
I just think it's funny to think of Dan Aykroyd like at his typewriter, and then Zool climbs on top of Vince Clortho, and that energy opens the portal for Gozer to come back.
I don't know. It kind of seems like Dan Aykroyd would write something like that. I don't know.
Only Dan Aykroyd would do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll see you later, huh? I'll give you a call. I'm gonna have a shower.